Hey guys, PepperAmmy here. This week we are taking a look at the more sciencey side of cooking with our first video looking at spherification. Now this is a relatively simple process that involves two additives, that being calcium lactate and sodium alginate. Now I'm going to start this video off with a recipe or two, and then what I planned to do was move on to the more sciencey side of it, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. Now the first recipe, or at least the first part of the first recipe, we want to start by weighing out our additives. Now we want to make a calcium lactate bath. For that we'll need 500 ml of water. Now I'm using bottled water, Volvic to be precise, as it's got a low calcium content, which for normal spherification is not all that important, but for adding to anything else it is important that its calcium level is low. Now for the liquid we are going to be turning into pearls, we want to combine 30 grams of cocoa powder and 30 grams of sugar, together with 300 ml, now this is important, of low calcium water. And then you want to bring this to a boil. Now the reason why you want to use low calcium water, which I'm using Volvic, is because the calcium is the part which will react with the sodium alginate. Now whilst the chocolate is heating, add in the calcium lactate to the water and stir until dissolved. Now the water may need to be somewhat warm for this, as I found out as my flat is cold at around about 12 degrees Celsius, I had a real hard time dissolving the calcium lactate in the water, so I basically had to put it into a hot water bath and get it up to around 24 degrees Celsius, which seemed to make it dissolve a lot better. Now, while that's happening, I'm also going to be dissolving 1.5 grams of sodium alginate into some apple juice to make some apple pearls. Now, learn from my lessons, if your juice is from a concentrate, there is a chance the water they use to dilute the concentrated liquid could contain calcium, as I found out with a previous batch that I tried. Now, more on that later. But with the sodium alginate, you want to use a hand blender to really blitz this into the liquid. Now, I'm going to be doing exactly the same with the cocoa mix, and then let that sit for around about an hour to cool down nicely, and then over this time it's also going to thicken up a little bit. Now whilst the cocoa is cooling down, the mixture will thicken up a bit, and this is really important for good spheres, as you want any liquid you'll want to turn into spheres to be around a thin yogurt kind of consistency. Now if the liquid is still on the thin side, you can add in a small amount of xanthan gum to thicken it up. Now that is another ingredient that in the future I will be covering, and I have used it in previous videos, but for those that don't know, I will go into a bit more of an in-depth detail in a future monthly sciencey video. Now once your liquid is ready to use, you want to use a pipette or a disposable large syringe to slowly drip the liquid into the calcium bath. Now upon hitting the calcium, it should instantly form a thin membrane around the liquid, making a sphere or a droplet shape. Then you want to continue doing this for as long as you want, or until you run out of mixture. Then carefully scoop out the pearls using a slotted spoon or a fine mesh sieve if you have one, and then place in a water bath to rinse off. Now I have this fancy syringe dropper contraption which I got for my birthday last year, and this will speed up the process a little bit as well, and it will make many pearls at once. Now here is a nice side view of the pearls being formed just from a different angle, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Now as for storing these pearls, you want to keep them covered with the same liquid they're made from. Like the apple ones, you want to store in a apple juice kind of container, but for the chocolate ones, you can store them in a neutral oil. Now the reason for this is the membrane is still slightly perforated, the water will seep through and change the flavour of the pearls, so you only want to make these a few hours or up to a day before using them for your best results. Now to finish and to serve the chocolate pearls, I made a simple white chocolate ganache by melting 150 grams of white chocolate in 300 ml of cream. Additionally, you could add in some vanilla extract or a scraped vanilla pod, and then let cool until thickened. Then to serve, place a small amount of the pearls on top of a spoonful of the ganache in either a small bowl or a soup/rice spoon, and there you have it, a fancy deconstructed cocoa. Now for the apple pearls, I just used those to top some plain yogurt, just to give it a little bit of extra flavour, and kind of takes away from the acidity of just plain yogurt as well. Now earlier in the video I mentioned about the use of calcium and the sodium alginate mixture. Now this was what was left of my apple mixture. It's congealed into one lump, so there was a chance that this apple juice was actually made with a calcium rich water. So I thought I would just tip it all into what now is the murky looking calcium bath and see what happens. Now it did kind of take on the form of a cast lava lamp, and it kind of was stable enough to lift up, but it did slowly fall apart in my hands. But there you have it, basic spherification. There are many more recipes out there. I plan on using this technique in the future for some of my videos, and in the future I will also cover reverse spherification, which is similar but also different. Now, as I said at the start, I do plan on doing a science breakdown for this video too, but I think it may work out better on its own kind of video instead of having it lumped onto the end of this recipe or scattered throughout the video. But anyway, that wraps up this week's video. As always, if you like what you saw, let me know down below with a like and a comment. If you're indeed new here, feel free to subscribe for free weekly cooking content, and I will see you all again next week. Thanks for watching.